Freeriders is largely similar to the first installment, but with a few differences, the most notable of which being its Kinect controls. The controls themselves are based on real-world gestures, from crouching down to jump to sticking your hand out to grab objects. And of course, don't forget to lean left, lean right, and be free!
Dude! Best chili ever! Got any more?
Yes, well, sir.
As a result, the mechanics and level design have been changed to better fit the controls. For example, the drifting maneuver isn't present. The closest thing to drifting in this game is that if you turn in one direction for long enough, the turns will become sharper with no extra air required, of course. I should also mention that outside a specialty type of gear, the second installment does not have a dedicated drifting mechanic. Instead, gravity control not only doubles as boosting you to higher ledges and on walls, but also helps for characters to boost around corners as well. Oh gee, what can't gravity control do? Well, gravity control acts as a tasty treat to help you grow some stylish beard hair. It's fantastic for your laundry, and it even makes for one stylish disco ball. Boogie down! Yeah! What else can I market?
What's this racket, and now of all times?
That's it!
Ever wanted your own fashionable gravity-breaking stone? I'll order your copy of Sonic Riders Zero Gravity and get your very own Ark of the Cosmos! Order the game with the deluxe edition and get your very own collectible ring. Order in 24 hours with either edition and get this defect ring for absolutely free because it was a first-run dud.
Oh dear!
What went flying just now?
Do I look like a ball to you?
Eggman, what are you doing here?
What do you mean? I own this company! Ha 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 ha!
What? So you're the ringleader behind this one too, Eggman?
Ringleader? What the devil are you babbling about?
Come on, cut the act. I'm talking about
Sonic Free Riders!
You must be joking! That's been quite a headache for me as well.
Like we'll believe anything you say.
Calm down!
Spill everything you know, now!
Knuckles, now's not the time to fight. Maybe we have nothing to do with Sonic Free Riders.
Where did you get that?
See it holding out on us, Eggman.
Very well, I'll tell you.
I did it! I stole the wallet!
Freeriders is largely similar to the first installment, but with a few differences, the most notable of which being its Kinect controls. The controls themselves are based on real-world gestures, from crouching down to jump to sticking your hand out to grab objects. As a result, the mechanics and level design have been changed to better fit the controls. For example, the drifting maneuver isn't present. The closest thing to drifting in this game is that if you turn in one direction for long enough, the turns will become sharper with no extra air required, of course. In fact, the only maneuver that requires air besides the minuscule amount required for jumping is the air boost, now being a kick dash in this case. The kick dash is similar to the air boost from the first game in terms of a boost of speed, but differs in its lack of ability to stun opponents, and that is much more brief than the normal air boost. Jumping has also been changed a bit from the first game. Instead of having the added element of holding down the control stick to apply force to the front, side, and back being more important than the side, it is purely based on how close you are at the end of the ramp before you make your big leap. Well, not purely, but in some cases it is more important to be at the end than others. Just make sure that you have a good charge, or otherwise you won't make it. So it's not purely, so there's that. This makes it more like zero gravity in this regard, just that it involves charging up this time, which I think was a better decision to begin with. I always found the triggers for the best tricks in zero gravity a bit weird, if I'm being honest. A more major change from previous entries is the contents of the item capsules themselves. Making itself more similar to Mario Kart in this regard, the contents contain items for the player to use. From rocket sodas that will perk you up from last place.
The game had some pretty cool mechanics too. There was this turbulence wave catch-up system that the lead players would leave behind from going so wicked fast, and the slower players were able to ride that wave, gain speed, and catch up. It was a pretty cool way to speed up slower players, and it didn't involve any blue shells.
To the world's deadliest set of sports equipment.
God damn it.
The game has all its items based on real-world gestures. Hence why almost all of the items are based on items people would use in real life. Well, except throwing torpedoes, but I think that was going to be some kind of exploding football during development. I mean, just look at how it's even thrown. So, not as realistic as pressing a button to shoot ink at your opponents. Yes, I'm counting the octopi, because people do press buttons in real life. Ink in your face, however, varies depending on the person. Even the character types involve gestures. Grinding now involves balancing on rails to maintain optimal balance, and therefore optimal speed. Mind you, it's impossible to fall off of the rails via improper balance, but you obviously don't want to be going as slow as possible on what's supposed to be a fast means of transportation. Fly type involves doing your best T-pose impression as you fly through the dash rings automatically. Don't think that's all though, as at points you will want to stop and lower yourself or you will wind up overshooting.
Go! Sonic has established a new track record!
Don't get in my way!
Gear change!
Power type, unlike before, requires knocking debris out of your way manually instead of having the game do the punching itself. Accompanied with these punches is a small magical white force to help you out. The game also provides a new move for the players to do. That gesture is the ability for all characters to stretch their arms out, to the side and up. The players are able to do this whenever they see lines of rings out of their reach, or whenever they come across a tall green pole.
Wait! Yeah, grab those rings!
Or rings, whatever the game wants to say. These poles come in two variants. Ones that allow sharp 45-degree turns, and horizontal bars that will launch you to higher areas. One stage even has you grabbing onto a train car this way, though I am a bit disappointed that the game didn't feature a variant for the vertical bar, especially since the first game had something just like that in Egg Factory and Metal City, respectively. What a missed opportunity that is. Keep in mind, however, that there is a slight input delay when it comes to the game's controls. It's not major by any means, but it is noticeable when you try to do something with exact timing in this game. Though at this point I'm not sure if it's a result of the game's programming or an inherent quirk of the Kinect itself. The only other Kinect game that I've played by this point was Kung Fu Panda 2. Regardless, it is something that does exist in this game and what I found to be worth pointing out. Also worth pointing out are the gear parts. I mentioned the gear parts before in the second entry, where they were part of the extreme gear. In this game, however, the gear parts are there, but are now a separate entity to the extreme gear itself. How it works in this game is that you can equip any gear part that the game offers, but only 2 at a time. Though you will be equipping 2 gear parts before a race, the gear parts are tied to which position you are facing while on the gear. This segues into my next topic. Too bad there's no Segway gear in this game, am I right? Am I right? Jokes aside, while Free Riders does very little aside from the Kinect system to innovate on the formula, the game does add its own system that allows the player to face left or right. On its own it's not much, but the gear parts are what allow this system to shine. In this game, gear parts activate depending on which style you are in, whether that be regular style or goofy style. As long as you are facing either direction, the gear part will be active, but switch to the other side and the other respective gear part will activate when the other deactivates. There's a small variety of gear parts to use in the game, including the character types that were made into gear parts because of the previous entry. All of that applies to the board type gears, but the bike type gears are also present in this game. They are the only other gear type present in this game, as a matter of fact. Skate and air ride gear I can understand, as well as wheel gear, as that would have been redundant for this game. But not yacht gear? That's based on a real world sport and that wasn't included? Anyway, again, the bike gear is the only other gear type to return from previous entries. Bike gears are typically faster than other gears, but aren't as fuel efficient, and that would seem to be the case here. Adding to that is that you cannot switch between gear parts because the bike gear is always facing in one direction, the forward direction. which means that the bike gear has just one part. Though there is a funny thing about the bike gear in this game. Someone on the development team must have still had their mind on zero gravity, because the bike gear grants the player the ability to smash debris even without the power type gear part. Yes, it still operates the same whether or not the power type gear part is equipped to the bike gear, and yes, it is an intentional effect if the manual is any indication of that. Still weird if you ask me. It just feels a little needlessly limiting, though I suppose the better performance of the bike gear makes up for it. Fair enough, I guess. Turbulences have been outright removed from freeriders this time, instead opting for the player to lean forward to speed up whenever you are on a straight path. Just to the next corner when you need to turn. Speaking of which, I should also mention that the game comes with the ability to insert a custom soundtrack. To use the custom soundtrack feature, first go to the area in the Xbox 360 where you would play the custom music in the appropriate format, those being the ones you see on screen right now. If the format is correct, then it will be recognized, but if it is not, then it simply won't appear. You can play the music either from your USB or the internal storage of the Xbox 360. Though if you ask me, I would prefer the internal storage option. Once you have selected your music, that music will play from now on, and you will be able to play through the game with that music chosen.
Choose from a variety of race modes. Enter the World Grand Prix and challenge yourself to a variety of missions. Race with 3 rule types for 1 or 2 players. Race against your rivals in this. Choose your extreme gear. Choose your extreme gear. Choose a gear part. Choose a second gear part. On your gear. Get set.
Funny enough, the music will not play in the opening sequence. Guess that song was just a bit too good to be replaced. Well, and it's a pre-rendered sequence. That's also copyrighted. Most likely because the entire contents were used in a trailer for the game, save for the end slate. Which was not in the game, it was in the trailer. The soundtrack overall is as solid as you would expect from a Sonic game, but I still find that the second entry was a bit better in that it had this quirk where every time you performed a gravity action, the music would change to a variation of what was playing on that stage. The main theme itself, Free, how original, I would even say is the best song in the game. You see, I prefer an opening song that's energetic and upbeat. It's what I find to be the ideal opening song for a racing game, and as a result I find it to be the best opening for a Sonic game in the series, at least in terms of music. The footage shown during the opening isn't bad either, featuring a mix of CG animation made for this game and in-game footage. However, there seems to be more in-game footage than actual animation, and what animation is shown off doesn't demonstrate much more than rivalries. At least between Sonic and Jet anyway. One of the main things that made openings such as the Sonic CD Uncompressed opening and the opening of the first Riders game was their stylized anime animation. I'm not saying that this opening has to be anime, but a bit more animation would have been appreciated here. I also wished that it did a better job at representing what this game is about. The game isn't just about Sonic vs. Jet, but 4 teams of 3 against each other. That's what I'm saying. I didn't expect the opening of this game to represent the Kinect controls, but at the very least it could have done better was represent its story. Speaking of which, let's continue with the story mode of this game.